We, let's see, today's date. It's August 6, 2016. And we did Daniel 5 last week. We were really not finished with it. There's so much more in Daniel 5 that we still have to figure out, specifically about the midnight. But I think when I did the studies on Daniel 6, it also tells us where we are right now, and that we're living so close to the midnight, and that the characteristics of midnight and the midnight cry we can find out by studying Daniel 6. So I think what we'll do is we'll study Daniel 6, and then we'll figure out some more understandings of midnight and midnight cry from combining Daniel 4, 5, and 6. All right. So with that, we'll go with, let's see, Daniel 6. Okay. Oh yeah. Here's the summary of Daniel 4 and Daniel 5 put together. All right. On the left, I kind of like the pink. You can't see it really that well. It's Daniel 4, the waymarks of Daniel 4 and the characteristics of the waymarks. And on the right is Daniel 5. So what we can find out is that at midnight, a prediction is going to be made. But a prediction is going to be made also at midnight cry. This prediction is about the midnight cry. And what happens at midnight cry? We see wild asses, troubled. It's about Islam. There's going to be a prediction made about Islam here. But there's also predictions that's going to be made here and here regarding the Sunday law, which is the end of the days, which is close of probation, which is the closed door. These things we'll realize is going to happen at midnight. But also, what happens at midnight? Because Jesus is our example in all things. When was Jesus arrested? Yeah, in Gethsemane at midnight. So there's going to be an arrest here too. All right. And when we go to Daniel 6, we realize Daniel was arrested. When was he arrested? Okay. All right. And he was thrown into the lion's den. So that will, it will corroborate also Daniel 4 and 5. Okay. We also studied the 6 gods of Babylon. Right. Okay. All right. Anyway, we will see the continuation of Daniel 6. Yeah, but Daniel 5, verse 30 and 31. That night of pleasure, that night of blasphemy, was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old. Darius was how old? 62 years old when he took the kingdom. All right. So, do you know the difference between Darius the Mede and Darius the Great, right? Right, because Darius the Mede is the king of the city of Babylon. Who was the king of Medo-Persia? Cyrus. Cyrus came and conquered Babylon, right? But the king of Babylon by itself was Darius, right? So they have cities, and all those have governors and kings, but the whole empire was ruled by Cyrus. Babylon was besieged by Cyrus, nephew of Darius the Mede, and commanding general of the combined armies of Medes and Persians. So Cyrus is the commanding general of the Medes and Persians. But Darius the Mede, he's the one that ruled Babylon. And they called him king, right? And they still call him king, right? Okay. But he's the uncle of Cyrus, right? So you know the difference now? Darius comes in a little later. Darius the Great comes in later, right? Much later. That's like 3 kings later, right? But Darius the Mede is the one that is involved. Who is the king at the time of the lion's den, all right? Okay. So this is the Medo-Persian Empire right here. It was a big, they took over Babylon, ruled all the way Egypt, Cyrene, all the way to Greece, Bactria, right? And this is the what? The Behistun inscription, right? This is part of right here somewhere, right? And this is Darius, shows Darius and his story. When they deciphered it, he was telling the story of how he is the successor of Cyrus and Cambyses, and there was a usurper called false Smerdis, right? That he conquered, right? So Darius, okay, and this is the grave of Cyrus in Pasargadae, modern Iran. It's still there. And this is...
So is the... Oh no, forget about it.
This looks very compelling, you know. Would you like to go here?
I would.
Oh, I would.
Bahistun. But being a carrier of American passport, forget about it.
But looking at this, oh boy, if I had a chance, I would like to go there. You know, just looking at this, oh wow. This is the Xerxes Gate in Persepolis, Shiraz area. Persepolis, Iran. Shiraz.
Which is in Iran.
Right, it's in Iran right now. Yeah, Shiraz.
That one. It's on
Yeah,
there.
Bahistun. And you got to see this one. What about here? Would you like to go there?
That's the same, that's the history.
That's the...
No, that's the Nakshe Rustam, the burial of Darius II,
Yes, the great.
Artaxerxes, Darius, and Xerxes, which is Ahasuerus.
Wow. And it's still standing?
It's still there. Look at these people. These are small people standing right there.
At
You
least
can go
Iran
there.
didn't destroy it.
Yeah.
You know? At least they did not destroy it.
Wow. You know, looking at this, I go, oh boy.
All of those, they call it the Zoroastrian.
So Daniel, I wonder where Daniel was buried.
Zoroastrian.
They claim that Daniel was buried in Shushan,
Yeah.
right here,
Yeah.
Susa. They claim.
Yeah.
And they have kind of like a monument or something like that. Yeah, no, nobody. Oh yeah, people go there. They make a in Iran.
Iran.
Yeah. All right.
It's Iran now.
Yeah, Medo-Persia is big time. Right. Okay. It's not as famous, right? You remember? But you know, looking all these, wow, it's pretty amazing things.
Probably because the Iranian government don't.
Yeah, because it's a Muslim country, probably. So they don't, you know, although they still recognize it as their big, antiquities, and they're very proud of this, you know, but they don't make it such a big an attraction, I guess. Anyway, okay, Medo-Persia, huge empire. Daniel 6, verse 1-3. And it pleased Darius, right? This is Darius the Mede, the uncle of Cyrus, to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these three presidents. So there was 120 princes, and over them were three presidents, of whom Daniel was first. Okay, so what does this mean? Is there a significance to this? Oh yeah, for sure. That the princes might give account unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and the princes because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Okay. So what does 120 princes mean? What's 120 mean? Do you know any 120? Noah was preaching for?
120.
Yeah, that's Genesis 6 verse 3. Noah was preaching for 120 years. Let's see, where's another 120? How old was Moses when he died? He was 120 years old. How old was Abraham when he had to go and sacrifice Isaac? 120 years old. Yeah, Noah preached for 120 years. Yeah.
There's also around 30 years old.
So the 120, we'll put that into a line somewhere. 120, we can put that into a line. And what about these three presidents? And Daniel was the first. Yeah, gotta be the three angels' message. He is preaching the first angel's message. The thing about the first angel, what is the first angel's message?
Fear God.
Fear, give glory,
Our judgment.
our judgment. So what's that? It's the three angels' message. The first angel's message is the three angels' message. Right? Yeah. The first angel's message is actually the three angels' message. Right? So he's giving the three angels' message right there. And he had an excellent spirit was in him. Right? He had the Spirit in him. He was receiving the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so how do we got to put that into a line, right? Babylon was taken by the Persians, and Darius the Median placed upon the throne BC 538. 2 years later, BC 536, Darius was dying. Cyrus took the throne. Somewhere, therefore, between these two dates, between 538 and 536, the event here narrated occurred. Wow. 538 BC. Okay, that's a long time ago. All right.
Really poisoned the riots.
Yeah.
He's just 2 years later, he's dying.
Yeah, he was 62, so at 64 years old, right? So Cyrus took over the throne. Anyway, okay, we got to put these lines, all right? Where's the 120? Now, 120, we put it right here because 120 years Noah was preaching. Noah preached from here until the midnight cry. 120 years, midnight cry. Because at midnight cry, the ark was finished. That's the first test. And then, what was the second test? The animals came in. Right. And then the third is the door is closed. Right? So there's the three tests right here. Right? And the door was closed. Right? That's Sunday law. Right. So this is midnight cry. Right? So the 120 years he was preaching right here. Okay. And who else? Moses was 120 years old. He died right here at midnight cry. And then Joshua took over and conquered Jericho. Jericho is conquered, right? At Sunday law. Let's see, who else? Who was 120? Abraham was 120. It was right here. Abraham right here was 120 years old. And then we did, so when you put line upon line, then you know multiple stories.
What are the angels?
Hmm?
The angels.
Which angels?
There's 2, 2, 1.
Yeah. This is the first and the second angel together, right? At 9/11. First and second angel together, that's Revelation 18. That's the Revelation 18 angel, the first and the second angel. This is the second and the third angel because they're combined together right here at the midnight cry. Right? And then this is the third angel being empowered. So third angel and then third angel empowered. Second angel, empowered. First angel is 1989. And then the first angel is empowered right here. Right? Okay. So this is, this is just a little cartoon of where to put 9/11 right there. Okay. So this is the first angel's message, right? The first angel's message is fear God, give him glory for our hour of judgment. Your hour of judgment is your binding time. So this is your binding time. This is number 3 is right here. Your binding time is right here. So because Daniel is preaching the first angel's message, which is actually the 3 angel messages together, his binding time is right here. So he's actually a priest, right? Because the Levites, their binding time is where? Right here. And then the Nethinims, their binding time is right here, right? Because so this is the 1, 2, 3. He's number 1 of the 3 presidents. Okay, he's the first president and had an excellent spirit. When did the Holy Spirit first get poured out? When did it start to sprinkle? I'm pointing right here, right? All right, 9/11. It starts to sprinkle right here. So he had an excellent spirit because he received the sprinkling of the Holy Spirit right there. Okay, so that kind of makes sense that this starts at 9/11. Okay? All right. Then the presidents and the princes sought to find occasion. They sought to find occasion. Yeah, they're going to find all kinds of ways. They have to find all kinds of excuses, right? Against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they could find none occasion nor fault. Oh, wow, they can't find anything that they can blame him for to trap him. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. So we're going to find something, we're going to make sure that he's going to have to break something of the law about his God somehow, right? So what was the motivation of the princes? Why did the prince want to find occasion with him? Yeah? Oh, of course, it's right. Excited jealousy of the leading men of the kingdom who sought occasion to complain against him. Why were they jealous? Because of his blameless conduct, right? Why is that?
Because it's a reflection.
Because it was a rebuke to their character, right? Mm-hmm. And this happening at that time, right? Starting. So is this present truth now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Very much so.
Yeah. Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king. So they assembled together, right? And said thus unto King Darius, live forever. They call him king, right? Live forever. They assembled and they talked to the king, and what did they say? All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, the princes, the counselors, and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute, to make a firm decree, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or any man for 30 days, save thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. All right. When they assembled together, what did they say? Are we going to make a decree, or there has been a decree?
They had to establish a royal.
Right? What is it? According to here, they said there has been a decree already made.
Have count.
Yeah.
It's already been done.
Yeah, it's already been done. So when they made an assembly, there's a decree already made. And who made these decrees? All the presidents. How many presidents were there?
3.
Daniel.
So did Daniel make the decree?
No.
Obviously not. But they say, okay, all the presidents made this decree. So what were they doing?
Doing it behind.
Making a false witness,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. There's a decree made already, but this is a false witness. Obviously not all the presidents. And how many groups of people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, okay. There's 5 have made a royal statute and a firm decree that in 30 days, there has to be a time period of 30 days. Anybody who worships any god other than you will have to be thrown into the den of lions. Well, we know this story since we were babies, right? That's why it's going to go pretty fast here. And then what happened? Now, O king, establish the decree, right? There's a decree already. Now what do you have to do? Establish it. How do you establish it? By signing in. Sign the writing of the decree. Seal it, right? When you seal it is when you sign it. So there's a decree already. We want you to sign it. So they came at an assembly. So what are the things to take out of this? There's an assembly. There's a decree already. And we want you to sign it. All right. And then for 30 days, there's a 30-day period where anybody who does not follow it will have to be thrown into the lion's den. Okay. What about assembly? Assembled. Oh, it's easy. Line upon line. Psalms 48. Psalms 48. For lo, the kings are assembled. Right? They passed together. They saw it and they marveled, and then they were troubled. And they hasted away. And fear took hold of them as a pain, as a woman. Why were the kings troubled when they assembled together? East wind. Okay. Now, does this apply to this time period? So where were they? Now, were they troubled because of the east wind? Does the east wind attack at multiple points? Of course, because it's a pain that like a woman in travail. So the pain that woman in travail comes one after the other, right? Multiple times. It just doesn't come once. Multiple times. Right? So which one is it? The key is right here. Hasted. Do you remember anybody hasted away? Hasted. In Daniel 2, Arioch hasted. He said he hasted and brought the news. And then he says, oh, here, we have Daniel who can interpret your dream. And he hasted and brought Daniel to Nebuchadnezzar. So the first time he hasted was at midnight. And then he hasted and brought Daniel to the king at the midnight cry. All right. So here we have, based on this, we know it's got to be either midnight or midnight cry. Okay. For lo, thine enemies have made a tumult, and they hate thee. They that hate thee have lifted up thy head. They have taken crafty counsel, and they consulted against thy hidden ones. And they have come as one consent. They are confederate. They make a confederacy and make a crafty counsel against you. How many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
In Psalms.
10 kings taking crafty counsel and confederate against
me.
Yeah. So when 10 kings confederate against God's people, right? We know this when we've studied this. This is actually the dragon, which is United Nations. making a confederacy against the Nethinims, right? And it's their binding time is at the between Sunday law and close of probation, right? So their confederacy is during the binding time, right? So that's the thing. So when they're making an assembly, and want to make a confederacy against Daniel at the time of at his binding time. So the binding time of Daniel, since he's a priest, is between midnight and midnight cry, right? Okay. Tears started from many eyes as I presented events to transpire in the near future, which will test the people of God. Bringing them where they will be required to make such decisions as Daniel made when the decree went forth that all who for the next 30 days should offer a petition to say to any save the king should be thrown into the lion's den. Had Daniel obeyed the decree, see, there was a decree made forth, right? He would have dishonored God, but he was true to principle, and the Lord delivered him. It is Satan's constant aim to exalt himself and his inventions to dishonor God. So this decree is to dishonor God. And what does it do? He is not satisfied unless he has the supremacy. It's not the purpose and work of God to compel men's consciences. So this decree is to dishonor God by compelling men's consciences. Isn't it true? Right. Because you are going to have to be made to obey. And you cannot go based on your consciousness. But Satan pushes his advantages. He is a rebel against God and Christ and is determined to war against them and those who are loyal to them. He hates them all with a bitterness that is impossible to describe and plots against the lives of those whom he cannot deceive by his devices. Right? So the decree is made and sealed by the ring of the king, which is a civil law, to compel the consciousness of men to dishonor God, to make void the law of God, right? All right. So the law is his wall. The law is made void by civil law. So where are the walls? There, we know from this study there's twin institutions are the walls, right? Sabbath and marriage, right? There's the walls right there. There's the walls. It's going to be made void. So there's going to be made a decree. Well, we know the decree is made even before midnight. Yeah, the decree is made, but it's going to be sealed right here, right? It's going to be made established to make void the law, so that this wall is going to be broken down, right? There's going to be another decree to void this law, right? But it's going to have to void these laws, right? But the decree is already made, is going to be established to make void this law to go against man's conscience, right? Okay. So we have the five. That's the five foolish virgins, right? Because Daniel had an excellent spirit here. The five foolish virgins were not getting the excellent spirit. They were influencing the writing of a statute or a decree, right? And the assembly was made right here, right? The assembly of the kings to sign the decree at midnight. And within a span of 30 days, so this is the 30 days right here. The 30 days, between this span, you cannot bow down to anybody except the king. Right? You have to follow the order of the civil government against your conscience. Okay. starting to develop the waymarks here.
30 days could be the binding.
That's right. The 30 days is the binding.
Is the binding.
Yeah. This is the binding.
So there's 90 days there. That's
90 days before the binding.
for the
No, this is not exactly chronological. This is from a different line. So this 30 days is actually because there's also three. There's 3 days here. We'll find out there's actually only 3 days. These are prophetic, so you don't subtract it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. It's a different. Yeah. When it's prophetic, you just don't subtract one from the other. Huh? All right. So we're lining up all these characteristics of the waymarks. So the main thing is that we know that there's the decree is already made up even way before midnight. There's a decree already made up, and we know it has something to do with the Patriot Act, right? Where your civil liberties are taken away, right? Yeah. And that is going to be enforced right here, right? It's going to be established. And they're going to make any excuse to make that, enforce that, right? Against you, right? To force your conscience right here at midnight. And you know what? We're living very close to that time now. It's going to come here. Okay. Okay. Daniel 6, verse 10 to 11. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he found out that the writing is signed. He knew that it's midnight now. He went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. So he did what he always did. He did not change his habits or his customs. Then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. That's a second assembly, right? Then they assembled. The first one, they assembled in front of the king. Now they assembled and watched him pray 3 times, right? Okay. Watch and pray. Let your prayers be fervent. Let this be a language of your heart. I will not let thee go unless you bless me. Have a set time, a special season for prayer, at least 3 times a day. Morning, noon, and night, Daniel prayed to his God, notwithstanding the king's decree and the fearful den of lions. He was not ashamed or afraid to pray, but with his windows open, he prayed 3 times a day. Did God forget his faithful servant when he was cast into the lion's den? Oh no. He was with them there all night. He closed the mouth of these hungry lions, and they could not hurt the praying man of God. Right. Right. Pray 3 times a day. Don't change your habit. The prophet's enemies counted on Daniel's firm adherence to principles for the success of their plan, and they were not mistaken in their estimate of his character. He quickly read their malignant purpose in framing the decree, but he did not change his course in a singular particular. He knew what was going on at midnight, right? He knew. Why should he cease to pray now when he most needed to pray? Rather would he relinquish life itself than his hope to help in God. With calmness, he performed his duties as the chief of the princes. At the hour of prayer, he went to his chamber, and with his windows open toward Jerusalem in accordance with his usual custom, he offered his petition to the God of heaven. He did not try to conceal his act, although he knew full well the consequences. So there's going to be consequences when you're praying to your true God at midnight. His spirit faltered not. Before those who were plotting his ruin, he would not allow it even to appear that his connection with heaven was severed. In all cases where the king had a right to command, Daniel would obey. But neither the king nor his decree could make him swerve from allegiance to the King of Kings. Right? So there's going to be a consequence, right? Right. At midnight, it's going to be a different. You're going to have a consequence for obeying your conscience. Yeah. It's coming up soon. Okay? Yeah. Daniel, when told he must choose between his life and his worship of God, did not hesitate, but 3 times a day, as he had been his wont, offers a petition to Jehovah. Death in the lion's den confronted him, but he counted it better to lose this present life than to lose eternal life. The Hebrew worthies, when told that they must worship the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up, or to be cast in the fire furnace, declared, "Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fire furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if it not be known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." So Ellen White is comparing the lion's den with the fiery furnace. All right. Now we remember the fiery furnace is where at? At which time? Which way, Mark? Remember, it's at Sunday law. It's at Sunday law.
Because it's
Right. Now Ellen White is comparing the fiery furnace with the lion's den. Is it at the Sunday law?
The lion's den is at midnight.
Yeah. When we look at it, it turns out the lion's den is at a midnight cry. But Ellen White is comparing the two as the same. Why?
Because there is a death decree.
Well, there's the death decree for both. That's true. You must choose between life and the worship of God at both places, because both are the time of crisis, right? Right. Both are the time of crisis, even though they may be at different waymarks, right? Both are life of crisis,
Both places you have to make decisions.
right? Because the probation closes for the priest
For the priests.
before, right?
before the leap.
Yeah. So Daniel was put into the lion's den at midnight cry. That's why Daniel is not.
Daniel is a priest.
Yeah, and that's why he's not at the fiery furnace.
Yeah.
Because the 3 boys are the Levites.
They're Levites, right? This is prophetically. So when you realize prophetically, oh, it makes sense now. Because Daniel, all right? But they have their own crises, right?
Different, yeah.
Yeah, the fiery furnace is a Sunday law, right? Yeah.
What happened to Daniel when he was not there?
Yeah, because he was already sealed, remember? But it's not chronologically, because that story comes in. Because when we're talking about prophetic, now it's different now. Yeah, because Daniel is sealed ahead of time already as a priest. Right. Let's see. But while time and money is invested in procuring library of books, which become a burden, the plain it is written is but dimly comprehended. If those who search the scriptures have their mind made up to lay their preconceived opinions at the door and take the word as a thus saith the Lord on its own merits, truth expounding and explaining truth, and believe and practice the word which is the bread of life which came down from heaven, irrespective of the consequences to their financial standing, losses or gains, every church member would have the divine principles inwrought in the heart as if written with the finger of God. The gaping lion's dens or the fiery furnace would not intimidate them to deny and betray the truth for any amount of favor or worldly honors or for the exalted positions. Right? The gaping lion's den or the fiery furnace. It's both time of crises. Not necessarily the same time on the waymarks, but they're both time of crises. Right. Okay. So let's see. We have they assemble together in front of the king and ask the king to sign the decree, right? And they watch Daniel pray for 3 times a day, and they assembled to watch him pray 3 times a day, right? That's assembly number 2, right? Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or any man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? The king answered and said, This thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persian, which cannot be changed, right? Which altereth not. Then answered they and said before the king, that Daniel, which is the children of the captivity of Judah. Oh, they like to make fun of the Jews, right? All the time. Regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but make his petition 3 times a day. Okay, the question is, what day is this? Okay, you didn't expect that. Okay, the first day, they assembled together and said to the king, okay, make a decree. All right? Then they had to watch him pray they watch him pray how many times?
3 times a day.
To watch him pray 3 times, they have to watch him for a whole day.
Yeah.
So that's the second day.
It's the second day.
So they watch him pray for 3 times, then they went to the king. So this is the third day, right?
The third day.
Because they said, hey, we watched him for a whole day and watch him pray 3 times, right? So they went to him.
It's
The
also
third
the
day.
within 30 days.
Right. So, but within 30 days. But within the third day already, we already caught him.
They already reported him.
Right. They reported him. Yeah. We have already the proof. Right. Yeah. Okay.
They just want to trap him.
They trapped him. So they watched him. They assembled on the second day, and they watched him for a whole day, and they saw him 3 times in that second day. And they went to the king. On that third day, they went to him, and they said, hey, we watch him pray for 3 times a day, right? Okay. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast thou not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save thee, O king, shall be cast into the dens of lions? The king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Then answered they and said before, oh yeah, hey, wait a minute, didn't I read that already?
Yeah, you read it.
Right. For an entire day, the princes watched Daniel. See? For an entire day. Right? That's the second day. 3 times they saw him go to his chamber, and 3 times they heard his voice lifted in the earnest intercession to God. The next morning, they laid their complaint before the king. See? That's their complaint. Right? So it was the third day. That's prophetically significant. Because there's 3 days, he prayed 3 times, there's all these threes.
3.
Right.
3.
We know we're in the binding time. Right. All these threes. Right. They laid their complaint before the king. Daniel, his most honored and faithful statesman, had set the royal decree at defiance. Right. So it was on the third day. Right. You know, these details we didn't get, in our Bible stories.
We just read this story just for kids.
Yeah, this is a kid's story, right? Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself. Oh, he was sore displeased with who?
So why did I sign that?
Yeah,
So they realized that
He regretted it.
that's right. He was trapped and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. He wanted to what? He wanted to deliver Daniel.
Yeah.
Right. And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. He wanted to deliver Daniel. And he labored on that third day all the way until even. Then these men assembled unto the king, and what the men did? They assembled unto the king and said unto king, now, O king, the law that the Medes and the Persian is, that no decree nor statute which the king established may be changed.
They're probably rubbing it in. Your favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
You cannot change it.
You can't change it. See, the king wanted to, and he was laboring that whole day. He wanted that third day, he wanted to release Daniel. Somehow, how am I going to release this Daniel? There's got to be a way for me to release Daniel. But even until, then they had another assembly. See? 3 assemblies. 3 prayers, 3 assemblies, 3 days. We know we're in the binding time. Right. So assembly, that's 3 days. There's another assembly. Assembly 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 assemblies. Because there's 1, 2, when we count it, that's the 3 days right here. Right? But this 30 days is actually, now it's made, this 3 days is within this 30 days. Right here, 1, 2, 3. The 3 assemblies, 3 days, 3 prayers, right, in this binding time. Right? Okay. What did he do? Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. So when was Daniel cast into the den of lions?
On the 4th day.
Right. Yeah, it was actually in the 4th day, but he was cast after even, right? Yeah, because he worked until even, right? He was cast after even, right?
After working hours.
Yeah, after working hours. Cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God, whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee.
He even had the faith.
Yeah. And the stone was brought and laid upon the mouth of the den. Oh, there was a stone put on the mouth of the den. And the king sealed it with his own signet, with the signet of his lords. Right? Yeah, I like this picture. It's kind of cool. Yeah, that's the signet. That's the signet ring. And he sealed it, to make this seal. Right? That's what the seal looks like. That the purpose might not be changed concerning Daniel. Then the king went to his palace and passed the night fasting. Neither were instruments of music brought before him, and his sleep went from him. Instruments of music, huh? Right. Some reason instrument of music makes you go to sleep. Mm-hmm.
The archaeologists didn't find it.
Yeah, the signet of his. So there was a seal. So there's a sealing between midnight and midnight cry, right? Yeah. Okay. Daniel in the lion's den is the same Daniel who stood before the king enshrouded by the light of God. So in the good times and in the bad times, Daniel is the same. Paul in the dark dungeon awaiting the sentence which he knew was to come from the cruel Nero is the same Paul who addressed the court of Areopagus. A man whose heart is stayed upon God in the hour of his most afflicting trial and the most discouraging surroundings is just what he was in prosperity, when the light and favor of God seemed to be upon him. Faith reaches to the unseen and grasps eternal things. So he does not change. He continues to pray 3 times. Right? His character is revealed in a time of crisis. Because it was already established before midnight. So your character is already established before midnight. We have to have a character already ready, right? So during this time when you have an excellent spirit in you, you are actually developing a character. And that has to be established already before midnight. Because at midnight, it has to be established. You're going to be caught, right? You can't change your mind anymore. Then suddenly, well, you know what? Before I used to not really pray, but now I'm suddenly going to pray. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, even before.
Right. That's not going to happen. At midnight, you have to, that's when your character is revealed, right? Yeah. So what was... okay. Now this reminds me of the story of Esther, right? What was happening in the first month? Well, we're not going to read the whole thing, but we summarize it. In the first day of the first month, what happened? Haman started to cast lots, right? And then he asked the king to make a law, right? And that law was to be sealed with the king's ring, right? Makes the law. What was the law supposed to do? To kill the Jews who had a different law than theirs, right? Because Jews had a different law, right? And that law was to come on the 13th day of the first month, right? We did this before. He was casting lots from the first day of the first month. He was already making his mind that he was going to kill the Jews, even at 9/11, right? The decree was already made here, but the decree was not sealed until the midnight cry, right? The 13th day of the first month corresponds to the midnight cry, right? And we also know that they're already planning a death decree. Even from here, they're planning a death decree. Okay, but the 13th day of the first month corresponds to a midnight cry. And that's when the decree is sealed. There's a sealing of the decree also in the story of Daniel, obviously. Sealed with the king's ring, right there, King Ahasuerus. So this is when you compare the story of Esther and Daniel. So many similarities. You realize that there's that's when they have to be sealed right here. All right, because the sealing, actually the sealing already starts here because their lots are being casted, right? Sealing, but the final sealing happens here. Okay, the decree is sealed right here. Okay, now we're going to put multiple lines together and see what happens. Okay, because we're studying line upon line, and we put in Esther's line. Okay, the assemblies. Now I summarized the assemblies. There's 1, 2, 3 assemblies, right? Right here. He prayed 3 times. 1, 2, 3. On the second day, he prayed 3 times here. The first assembly, they in front of the king. Second, they watch him. It's a visual test. Second is always a visual. And on the third day is basically, they say, oh, you can't change your what? You can't change your law. You got to make the decree is already signed. You got to throw into the lines then. So that's a midnight cry. You got to enforce it. The seal is made, all right? The seal is already stamped. Okay. Daniel was touched 3 times in Daniel 10. See these 3. Remember, he's touched 3 times at the binding time, right? And let's see, where's my notes here? His binding time, he strengthened him to be strong, right? So that he will understand the Chow Zone vision of what is going to happen at the Sunday law, right? What is going to happen at the time of crisis also. Because at the Sunday law, he found out that Gabriel has been fighting against the prince of Persia, and that after that will come the king of Grecia. So king of Persia is actually America, and United Nations is going to come at the Sunday law. And he's going to be given that understanding after he is touched 3 times in his binding time, right? Okay. So this line of Daniel, now this is Daniel 2. Okay? Corresponds to the line of Daniel 6. All right, Esther, obviously we know Esther. Esther said, oh, come pray for me for 3 days. All right? Yeah. He asked the Jews and his maidens to pray with him for 3 days because I will have to go and meet the king, right? And on the 3rd day she was touched with the scepter, right? On the 3rd day. Okay. Elizabeth and Mary. All right, let me see. How do we put this together right here? Elizabeth and Mary. Okay, remember Elizabeth was in hiding for 5 months, right? 5 months right here. And on the 6th month, right, then she went and met Mary, and they both prophesied. She went out of hiding, and she went and saw Mary. And the 2 women prophesied. So there's that 1 month right here, the 30 days. But this 5 months here is significant because this was when she was hiding, right? Hiding and receiving the excellent Spirit, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit right here. But she was in hiding. That 5 months corresponds to the first woe, because 5 months is 150 years. The first woe is 150 years when Islam can only, they cannot kill, but they can torment, right? And what happens? The 4 winds are let loose. And the 4 winds are the Islam, the sultans of Baghdad, Iconium, and Aleppo, and one more, I can't remember. They're let loose. But they still can't. They can't bring down Constantinople until 1453 at the midnight cry. They brought down. So this 4 years here corresponds to this 4 years right here. Wow, all these lines start coming together, but it gets confusing because you get so many details going on right here. But we realize this is the beginning of the second woe. This is the ending of the second woe. All right. Now Joseph's dream start at midnight. No, he had his dream, and what did he say? What happens at midnight cry right here? Islam is going to attack. The east wind is going to attack, and famine starts, right? Because this is the 7 years of plenty. This is the starting of the 7 years of famine, right? Wow, so many things put together. And this is Balaam's donkey, Balaam's ass, right here at midnight cry. It's when Islam attacks, right? The east wind attacks, Balaam's foot is crushed, and so when we put all these together, we realize there's a wall right here, and this wall is going to be broken, right? Because there's going to be a decree that's going to force the conscience of men's conscience here to break down the wall of God's law is going to be made void here. And it's something to do with the marriage, right? There's a wall going to be broken down here. And because of that, and as a consequence of that, Islam is going to attack also right here. There's also a wall right here. Predictions coming true right here, predictions coming true right here. Understanding of the visions, right? All here. So there's a lot of complicated things that's going to happen at midnight, and all these things are still being revealed to us right now. All right? Yeah. Okay. Wow. Then the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste. Oh, in haste also. Right? In haste. Hasted into the den of lions. So here the king went in haste to meet Daniel. In Daniel 2, Daniel was brought in haste by Arioch to the king at midnight cry. And when he came to the den, he cried with a lamentable voice. Oh, he cried with a lamentable voice. This is the midnight cry. Right? We know we're at midnight cry. So Daniel in the lion's den is at midnight cry. Right? Yeah. And when he came to Dan, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions? Right? So we know we're at midnight cry. Yeah. So, On account of his praying to God, he was cast into the lion's den. Oh. He was cast into the lion's den because of why?
He was praying.
Because he was praying, right? He was praying to the true God.
The true God.
As compared
True
to,
God.
because when you combine the fourth and the fifth, Daniel and Belshazzar was praying to the six gods of Babylon, especially Belshazzar, right?
Yeah.
Right. But they were both praying to the same gods. But Nebuchadnezzar repented. Belshazzar did not repent, right? Yeah. Here Daniel was praying to the true God, and because of that, he was thrown into the lion's den. So you're going to be thrown into the lion's den because of praying to the true God. Okay. So you know what's going to happen at midnight? All right. Was Daniel suffered to be consumed? Did God forget him there? Oh no. The mighty commander of the host of heaven sent his angel to close the mouth of these hungry lions, that they should not hurt the praying man of God. And all was peace in that terrible den. The king witnessed his preservation and brought him out with high honors. He was brought out with high honors. He was lifted up. Right? Was the priest lifted up at midnight cry? Yes. Was Daniel lifted up out of the den of lions? Right. Satan and his angels were defeated and enraged. So what was Daniel praying in the lion's den? We're actually going to get to this. Oh, we have time. What was Daniel praying about in the lion's den? He was praying.
I don't even think that it was remember that.
Daniel talked with God. Heaven was open before him, but the high honors granted him were the result of humiliation and earnest seeking. He did not think, as do many at the present day, that it is no matter what we believe. If we are only honest and love Jesus, just love Jesus and just believe in Jesus. No. True love for Jesus will lead to the most close and earnest inquiry as to what is truth. There you go.
That's joyful.
Uncle Uchok, you better you gotta save this one. Christ prayed that his disciples might be sanctified through the truth. He who is too indolent to make anxious, prayerful search for truth will be left to receive errors which shall prove the ruin of his soul. It is not about belief, faith, and it's not about belief and being honest and love Jesus. It's the truth that's going to set you free. Right? He was praying for the truth. All right. Through the moral courage of this one man who chose, even in the face of death, to take a right course rather than a politic one. Wow. He did not care what was politically correct. He was concerned what was the truth, right? He's more correct. He's worried about what the truth is. So what is not politically correct? He didn't worry about that. Satan was defeated and God honored. For the deliverance of Daniel from the power of the lions was a striking evidence that the being whom he worshipped was the true and living God. There you go.
There you go.
See? So the time of crisis is more than just love of God. It's more than just the Sabbath. It is to show the world the true God that the world had not been worshiping. Yeah, people get worried, just as long as I worship on the Sabbath, come the crisis, I'm going to be saved. Oh boy. And the king wrote unto all people, nations, and language, and dwell on all the earth. I make a decree in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom and that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. Right? So it's about who you are worshiping. It's not just when, but it's also who.
Ooh, most important. Yeah.
Then said Daniel unto the king, O king, live forever. My God has sent his angel, and shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me. For as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee. So before my God, innocency was found in me. Right? I was already perfect before I was thrown in the lion's den. Right? I was perfect when I was thrown in the lion's den before my God, and even before thee, even before the king. O king, have I done no hurt? Then was the king exceeding glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up. Daniel has to be lifted up out of the den, right? At the midnight cry. So the priests are going to be lifted up. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no matter of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. Right? He was taken up. He was lifted up. He was lifted as an ensign. All right. Hebrews 11. And what shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, of Barak, of Samson, of Jephthah, of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions. It's talking about Daniel. Quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Right? Through faith. Through faith in the true God. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them into the dens of lions, them, their children, their wives, and the lions had the mastery of them, and brake all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. Even before they touched the bottom of the den, they were already broken. Right? So the accusers and their families were, their probation closed at midnight cry.
Right.
So who are the accusers?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You don't have to say.
We know. Yep.
Right? Their probation closes at midnight cry. Okay?
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's coming up pretty close.
I didn't even aware of it.
Yeah. It's not. Remember, this is not literal. Their probation closing at midnight cry. Tough problem. Then King Darius wrote unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied unto you. I make a decree. Oh, there's going to be a decree at midnight cry. Oh, no, now this is a decree for people, nations, and languages. Oh, this is kind of like a decree for the whole world.
Universal.
Yeah. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble fear before God. Right? We were here. Of the living God, for he is the living God, steadfast forever, and his kingdom that's which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in the earth. And who had delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius, and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Right? So because Darius was only 2 years, and then Cyrus took over. Right. All right. Came even unto. So there's a worldwide decree. And this king ruled over every dominion. Oh, so there's going to be, okay, what does this mean, every dominion? Okay. Now this dominion, we'll study at a later time. It's going to be, because this king will rule over his kingdom but also over the United Nations,
Must be representing
right?
God, Jesus.
He has a parallel kingdom. This is America, because even America, they lost Babylon, even after they were conquered, even after Islam conquered, they were still had influence over the whole world, because they can actually make the whole world follow them, and also proclaim the Sunday law, right? So they still had power, right? This is why she is still the richest king.
Literally, they don't.
That's right, comparatively, because rich is relative, right? It depends on what else, what's how are you compared to the rest of the world? Yeah. Because if everybody's poor, then you're rich.
Yeah.
Even if you only have $1, if everybody has no dollars, then you're rich,
That's true.
right?
Yeah. As you said, it's relative.
It's relative. So this king will still be able to control the world. And when does that start? Okay. All right, we were here. This is the 3 days, the 3 prayers right there, 3 days, the 3 assemblies. This is the binding time, right, for Daniel. And he was already perfect before he went into the, right? He's sealed. He's sealed in this binding time. This is why this is the judgment. The binding time is when you're sealed. The third angel, this is the first, second, and third. The third angel is the sealing angel, right? He seals you right there. Daniel is already sealed right here, right? But before he's sealed, he's already perfect, right? Then he's cast into the lion's den, and then it is lifted up right here, okay? So he's thrown in, and the king came to him in haste, right? Just like Arioch brought Daniel to the king in haste at the midnight cry. And there's a cry, right? There's a midnight cry, yeah. Because the loud cry is here, right? Midnight cry becomes the loud cry. So the king cried, and Daniel is taken up, he's lifted up. And he was found to have no hurt, right? And then the accuser's thrown in, all right? Wow. The accuser's probation closes right there. And then there's a worldwide decree. How could the worldwide decree be at the Sunday law? How could the worldwide decree? That's right. Because then how America is going to say, okay, the whole world have to follow also the beast, right? And then they start following, one after the other, until the last one,
Implementation
it's implemented throughout the whole world
until the
and the close of probation, right? So it starts right here. The worldwide decree starts right here, right? Makes sense. All right. Okay. Wow. No, here now we have to. This is the more sure word of prophecy. You combine. This is the fourth. Now this is the fourth chapter of Daniel. This is our summary of the fourth chapter of Daniel. We combine it with the fifth chapter of Daniel, and combine it with the sixth chapter of Daniel. Getting too confusing now. There's a lot. But you realize we're living right here, and we are required to know when the time is close. We are not telling the world when it's going to happen, but we are required to know that the time is close. The signs we're seeing, there's going to be a prediction here. There's going to be assemblies made. You're going to be entrapped. They're going to trap you. And they're gonna trap you because you are praying to a different God than they are, right? And your life is a rebuke to them, right? Yeah. And you're already going to be sealed in your binding time here. And then you are going to be thrown into the lion's den. But then you're going to be lifted up, and their probation is going to close right here, right? those who accuse you. Correct? Right. So all this, we're going to study even more what it means, what it all means at midnight cry. These things we got to know before we have to understand all the events right here,
Yeah.
because it's going to come up.
Yeah.
It's going to come up on us soon. Right. Right. The close of probation. Right. Because we understand your character is gonna be perfect right here. Have to be perfect right here, because otherwise you won't be a priest. Okay. Wow. And that is the more sure word of prophecy. Okay.
Ate is playing. Kaka is playing.